I wish I had a Coke. I saw this science experiment once where they put this tooth in Coke, and over a period of a few weeks or days, maybe it was just one day, it completely fell apart. Just disappeared. I guess that could happen with a full mouth if we were to sit around with a mouthful of Coca-Cola day and night. I wonder how that would work, though. The teeth falling out? Would you swallow them and then would they come back in somehow? Oh, God, am I stupid? What am I supposed to do? I thought by now I'd at least have some sort of extra work, something. I met this girl, Sherry, at the lunch counter. I thought she was pretty weird, but she came out to be nice, and she said that one way to break into movie business is to have a videotape of yourself made. But the problem is it costs. So I was thinking maybe I could find somebody who had one of those video cameras that you use at home.
I like the way the opening moment was working for you.
Yeah, I liked that.
And wish I had a Coke. I think you got another little moment there between I wish I had a Coke
and I saw a science experiment
once.
Okay.
It's kind of just on her part. It's just sort of free association.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish I had a Coke. Science experiment.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You start to go a little bit deeper with stuff. That's kind of a progression. Okay. In other words, you just saying, okay, whatever shows up, I'm going to go as deeply with it as I can, and that depth is always going to fluctuate on a kind of moment-to-moment basis. Okay. So it's not looking like for some uniform depth, but it's just always kind of okay. I'm going to give myself the room to go deeper with whatever I can go deeper with.
Okay.
Any place where you kind of feel like it feels a bit arbitrary to go to the next line because the script really doesn't give me what's happening here.
Yeah.
Okay, just give yourself the room there to get confused, struggle with it, see what comes up. Okay, and there are a million different ways to get from one line to the next. So it's not like you're hunting around for the right way to do it. And you don't have to demonstrate to me how you're doing it. It's just really a question of your process of, waiting for it to get you to the next line. This, by the way, whatever happens there, will match up perfectly with when the viewer is ready to hear the next line. Because as you're going through that nonverbal process, you're actually going to be hitting them with that when they're ready for it. And so you don't have to worry about the viewer, okay? That whole part of it seems to be going along very nicely.
I wish I had a Coke. I saw this science experiment once where they put a tooth in Coke, and over a period of a couple weeks or days, or maybe it was just one day, it completely fell apart. It just disappeared. I guess that could happen with a whole set of teeth if we were to sit around with a mouthful of Coca-Cola day and night. I wonder how that would work. The teeth coming out, like would you swallow them, and then what would they come back in somehow? God, am I stupid? What am I supposed to do? I thought by now I would at least have some sort of extra work, something. I met this girl, Sherry, at the lunch counter. I thought she was pretty weird, but she turned out to be nice, and she said that one way to break into the movies is to have a videotape of yourself made. Only problem is, it costs. Maybe I could find somebody who has one of those video cameras you can use at home.
Yeah, it should feel
Yeah,
like it's a
it
little
felt
bit
more
out of
like,
control.
yeah.
You know, it should feel like
Yeah.
it's, I don't know where it's going. That's exactly the way it should feel.
So yeah, I like in opening up those spots for yourself. I think was really good. You could just kind of leave them open like that, you know.
Like walking into an audition and just to leave them open and let it be what it is.
You definitely could. You might also find as you're developing the monologue that you bump into something, you know, when you're running it once, that's kind of like, oh, wow, that's, yeah, well, you could then kind of keep that in structurally. You could say, okay, that stem kicks in that one. So you could do it both ways, really. I mean, what you got to remember is you have a lot more freedom in a monologue than you do when you're in a show.
Yeah.
There's no other actors around you. You know, you're completely defining the space. You're completely defining the human situation. So you've got loads of room to move stuff around without fear of, you know, injuring what's going on in the scene around you, say, for instance.
Right now, whether you realize it or not, you're responding.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, unless you're unconscious, there's always some response.
Now, the vast majority of those responses, you couldn't even really describe them. Like with the usual terminologies, you know, sad or upset or blah, 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 blah. They're way more subtle to that, and they turn over at a much higher rate of speed. So there is always a response.
This kind of goes along with these opening up these moments we're talking about, because there's cerebral activity, but there's also sort of continuous response turning over. You certainly couldn't define it, but you can feel it. And all you really have to do is just let those responses be there.
And let's put one thing in at the end.
Maybe I could find somebody who has one of those video cameras you can use at home.
Okay, and it's like, wouldn't that be like you, Bert? I know you know people. And then he just shakes his head no.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. To get you to that look away from him, okay?
Okay.
So we got a little bit of a nonverbal process going on there at the end.